Good morning. We're learning as a schus for Pur Shlema Pilan Chai Baserach. We're on Daf Samach Zayin Amud Aleph. We're going to need a little recap to bring ourselves up to date. Back on Samach Vav Amud Beis, we had said three halachas. First, we started with the halachas of Meruach, of Meiser, that when someone who is either a hektish or someone who's not a yid, if it's in there, if you have produce, tevel, that's in their reshus at the time of miruach, which is when the tevel becomes concretized, that it now needs to have meiser taken off of it. So we concluded in the end, everyone agrees that if it's in the reshus of hegdish at the time of miruach, the produce in the reshus of hegdish at the time of the finishing of the smoothing of the grain, it's not going to be chayev and meiser. And then we brought the same thing legabi meruach hekdesh is part even yeah. Then we said a machlokes legabi meruach by ovid kechav. That was a machlokes tanoim that we said that first Meir and Rabbi Yehuda say you can be tayrim from the produce that you got from a guy together on the produce that you got from a yid, because he holds even if the guy did miruach with it, it doesn't change the status as far as meiser. It's still going to be mechoyev meiser. That's the Tanakam. Based on Shimon say no, you can't cross tayrim. You can't take truma using the tevel that you got from a guy on the tevel you got from a yid, or vice versa, because they have different statuses. You can't be tayrim from one thing that is a different status of the other, and they have a different status in the fact that something you got from a guy may have been potter altogether from meiser because he may have done miruach with it already. Then we moved on to, that was all legabe the din of meiser. Then we moved on to the din of challah, that when you are megalgal an isa, when you need an isa, you mix together an isa, a dough, you become chayev and challah. So we said that if you do gilgal on hegdish, if hegdish is the one who does the gilgal, then it's potter from challah. Okay. Then we finally got to the, let's start from there. 5 lines to the top. Boy Rava, the final square of our 4-sided question. So we covered miruach of both a hegdish and a guy, and now we did gilgal of a hektish. Now we're going to ask gilgal of a guy. If a guy is in possession of dough at the time of flour, and he makes it into a dough, and then let's say he gives it to a yid, did it take off the chiyuv of chal? Boy Rabbi, gilgal of kechav mai misna tnan. So he said we have a mishnah. Gershon is guy v'hoisla isa, and he has a dough. Nasa ad shaloi nisgayer potter. If the dough was made before this ger became a ger, it has no chiyuv of meiser, right? Because it was done by a guy. The same person can be a guy and a yid. He's a megayer. So just as if you bought from a guy, we're concluding that if a guy is megalgal and if a guy makes a dough, there's no chiyuv of challah, and therefore if he's megayer later on, he could eat that dough without taking challah. Mishin is gayer. Mishin is gayer, but if he does it after he's megayer chayiv, then obviously he's a full-fledged yid. He's chayiv. Savak chayiv, and even if it's a savak, it's chayiv. It's a savak derais. Hamang tanilos. The Gemara asks, who is this according to? Because we had said before, legabi, the question of meiser, that was done by a guy. We said it was a machlokes. So Divrei Akolhi v'afilu Rabbi Rabbi Yehuda kamachayvi hasam patri. Do we say this according to everyone, even Rameh and Rabbi Yehuda, who earlier had said that the miruach of a ovid kechavim does not pater from meiser, it's nuchlev meiser, but over here they'll pater it. Hasam hu dechsev, and why dechsev the gancha you say Ravi mirachamid ve'mirachamid al rabbis afilu ovid kechavim. By miruach we have a limud to tell you that it's going to be chayev. Avol hasam treizim niyav yisay sechem tzid charu sechem there you say sechem v'charu sechem lo yisus. Of the kechavim he says that the first isa is to tell you the chiddush of how the size of the isa, the challah, like we do on I think like 4 pounds. I don't remember exactly what the number is, but it's you have to have that. That's what one Arisha Seichem is coming to tell you, and the other one is available to exclude goyim. That if a guy makes a challah, it's pater, and therefore v'lo is hektish, lo yidis kechavim, lo is hektish, and therefore even the manda amrim who say by meiser that when it's bershus a guy it's chayiv and meiser, they'll be masking by challah, and it's not. I don't Rav Shimon Getanila. Maybe it's only according to Rav Shimon, the Kapatri, that they say by Yapata from Meiser, if there was Miruach Kechavim, and the same thing would be the case by where Goy is Magalgal and Isa. But Rabbi Yehuda Gamri Rashis Mehasam. But Rabbi Yehuda learn Rashis to tell you that you're going to be Chayiv just like you're Chayiv by Meiser. Amar Rabba, Yeh Rabba Dachse Bechilma. Rabbi says that. I don't know what the answer is. I hope I'll get it, because the answer will come to me in a dream. Hada Amar Rabba. Then Rabba responded, Man da Amar Miruach Ha'evet Kechavim, Paiter Gilgal Ha'evet Kechavim, Paiter Gilgal Ha'evet Kechavim, Paiter. He says that it goes in line. The machlokes that we had, Legabe Miruach Ha'evet Kechavim, that Rabbi Yossi, Meir Rabbi Yehuda had said that it's going to be chayiv, and Rabbi Yehuda said, Rabbi Shimon said you're going to be pater. They'll say the same thing. L'gabi Gilgal Avik Yechavim. Papa asked Rava. So you're saying that the machlokes is the same. Whoever holds that you're pater by Miruach Avik Yechavim also holds your pater by Gilgal Isa of Avik Yechavim. And vice versa, whoever holds your chayiv is going to be chayiv. Prakter, Oivik Kechavim, Shehiprish Peter Chamor. And Oivik Kechavim, who separated his firstborn donkey. B'chala, and he separated chala. Ma'idima says shu potter. You let him know that this is all unnecessary. And the chamor that you separated remains chulin, it doesn't have any kedusha. And the chala, B'chalas and echalas lazarim. You could eat, anyone could eat the challah. It's not given over to a kohen. Petach hamor gazes va'ovid boy. The petach hamor has no kedusha. It's allowed to be shorn and eaten and done work with it. But the mashmois is trumasa esura didn't mention the case of truma, like we said that meiserus was a machlokes. It was done by a guy. It's mashma from here that it's aser. This is like the manda amar. Like the first mandam, Reb Meir and Rabbi Yehuda, who say that Yechayev Amiruach Evik Yechavim Yechayev and Meiserus. V'hai Tanadam Amiruach Evik Yechavim Eine Paiter v'Gilgal Evik Yechavim Paiter. So, but it's Eine Paiter. He says we see it's a mandam who says Yechayev Legabi Meiser, but he also mentioned in that brisa the Gabi Chala. He said the Chala can be eaten. So the Chala he's saying is Pater. So this is not like Rava's analysis that he got and came to him in a dream, that it's the same machlokes, the same mandam who holds the gabi miruach Avik Yechavim will hold that it's pater or chayiv. We'll say it's pater. We'll similarly say it's pater or chayiv the gabi chala. V'oides v'ravinu l'rava chalas Avik Yechavim be'eretz u'trumasai b'chutz l'aretz v'yidin says shu pater. The chala of Avik Yechavim in Eretz Yisrael is chala is only Daraisa in Eretz Yisrael, Utrumasa, or I think that, Utrumasa b'chutz la'aretz, and the truma in chutz la'aretz, if a guy separates truma in chutz la'aretz, ma'idin shu pater, chalasin and chazam, and shvasayim medames. We tell him that you're pater. Both of them are pater. Both the chala can be eaten by zarim, and the truma is not going to become. It's not aser, even though the guy separated truma because it was not required to do so. Hatrumase ba'aretz asura, but it's mashma only because the guy was in chutz la'aretz. But if he'd be in Eretz Yisrael, we'd say that it's still, if it goes to a yid, it's going to be mechayiv in truma, umedamas, and if he gives it to a yid, the yid now has a chayiv separate truma. The guy already did miruach, which would pater it according to the mandamar. who says that you're potter on challah, according to Rava, should also hold that you're potter for miruach. So it's really the same question like we had before, which is essentially um, according to Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon, who hold that you're potter on on uh, on challah, you should also be potter on truma. So why are we saying of both of these things that there's an isser truma on the avid kechavim, on on the produce that had miruach by the avid kechavim? By Tana Dam miruach avid kechavim paiter, gilgal avid kechavim paiter. So how could it be? It's l'chayra according to Rava, it should both be potter. The miruach, the din mice should also be potter. It happened by avid kechavim, and for the Gemara midrabanan, it's only a derabanan. The chacham and geyser that miruach avid kechavim you should still take off trumas and maises from it midrabanan. What's the reason? Gzeir mishum bali kisim. It's a gzeira because of wealthy Jews. What is wealthy Jews? It means, as you can imagine, let's see if there's a Rashi. Mishum bali kisim ashirim shaloichen tvua mecham chamarim. They buy tvua from shippers. Bisharis loikayach min ha'ovid kechavim shal ya'aser yiruch ha'ovid kechavim paiter. If they would find out that they could become potter and taking off meiser by buying from a guy, they'll come to say you could also buy from a Jewish shipper. Once they get, like, I got the idea, like they order from Walmart.com. They order their tefua and they say, oh, Walmart's owned by these guys from Arkansas. I don't have to take off Trumas and Maishas. Then they'll say the next time they'll order from Maishas, they'll say, oh, I also don't have to take off Trumas and Maishas. Or another Lishna Achroina, Mishum Bali Kisan, Sheishlan and Karkaris Harbe, people who have a lot of land, V'chasam al Roiv Maisris, they're worried about how much Maisa they have to take. Yiknu Loiv Dikechavim, they'll sell their land to Oiv Dikechavim, V'yamrichum, and they'll do the miruach, they'll do the smoothing of the grain, which is the point at which it becomes subject to Maisa. And that way they'll exclude themselves from Maisa. So there was a special takanim. The Raisa in Chanami, miruach Oiv Kechavim is part of Maisa. If the Oiv Kechavim owns it at the time miruach, it's part of it. But the Chavim is sakin, it should be us. Okay,
it's tax evasion.
Tax evasion, exactly. It's a tax evasion. It's a loophole.
Okay.
Yeah. So you're saying it's evasion, but you're going to see it's a problem to say it's evasion. In fact, why are we worried they're going to do the same thing with the challah? If someone has dough, it's a little harder according to the second pshat, but according to the first pshat, that people get used to evading, paying, taking off so they'll also get used to evading taking off challah. Instead of taking off a portion and giving it to the kayin, they'll just sell it to a guy and have him mix it.
They didn't have a big bakery. They didn't have like Cardinals. Big to home. It's not going to be that value.
You're saying it's not. They say that's why the second shot is a little harder to understand. But if we're saying that the people who just that people will do it as a matter of course, so they'll ask their cleaning lady, I want to sell you this bread, this dough, and I'll buy it back from you before we bake it because I don't want it to be usher. Well, but we usher als pasakim. So Gemara, Yaki afilu challah nami. Why don't we have the same problem with challah? So Gemara, after the afila pachas mechamisha revoim kemach va'oy. It says there's an easier way to avoid it. That's what I'm saying. It's not necessarily tax evasion, right? If you do challah less than the shear, whatever it is, a couple of pounds, you do a little bit at a time. You never have to you just mix the dough in smaller portions. You never have to separate challah. Now, why were they concerned about the other evasion? So we said like a legave miruach, worried that they'll come to do it without, they'll get used to it and they won't do it. So why are we saying, why don't we have that same problem with doing it less than the shear? It's not clear to me. So I guess that we're not worried. Once they get used to doing it less than a share, they'll know that there's a reason why I do it less than a share. But when they sell it to a guy or they buy from a guy, they're not going to realize that that was the problem.
But the Rashi said they were concerned that someone that sharing can do large value.
That was the second shot.
That's the second shot.
I'd say the second shot it's hard to understand according to this in general. Why are you saying afilu chala? Like you said, chala is usually not such large amounts. I guess if someone's running, if he's Chuni Hertzka, is making every 5 minutes another party, or Louis Shiner's going to Morocco, making a chasana, his baker's going all night, making 1,000 chalas. Maybe for them also it's a consideration. But if you're saying that the reason why there's no takana on challah is because he has a different way of avoiding it by just making a smaller share. Why don't you have the same thing with truma? Truma nami after the avila the ravaishia. You have the eitza ravaishia. The ravaishia ma'arim adam al tvuasai machnisa b'maitchala kadei shebehemta echalas p'turim min ha'maiser. There's another way to avoid taking off trumas and maisrus on your tvua. Is you bring it, a person, if he doesn't want to pay Trumas Amaisis, he brings it into his house while it's still covered in chaff before he puts it outside and winnows away the chaff. Because then it becomes treated as fodder, as animal food, and that is pata from the Maisa, which is a very complicated topic. We've had it before. Let's see Rashi. But First Rashi says that makes it into fodder, and fodder is from Maisa. The Torah says we learn the Gemara says it's a whole in Erevin that sorry, not in Erevin. It's a big sugya that in order for the tvua to become subject to Meiser, it has to come into the house and see the Pnei Abayis. It has to come through the gates of the house, and like Ki'ilu, it has to see the house, and if it's covered in chaff, it's not able to see the house when it comes in. So therefore, it doesn't become subject to Meiser. There's two parts. If you just need miruach, you have to smooth out the grain, then you have to bring it into the house. But if it's still covered in the chaff, then it doesn't see the house. Inami, another way to avoid it, you avoid the front gate. It has to mean seeing the house means it has to see the front door. If it comes through a back door, through the roof, it doesn't become subject to Maisa. So why are we saying challah? There's no gzeira, because there's an easy way to avoid. There's no gzeira on doing it, giving it to Avdei Chavim, or buying from Avdei Chavim. Because a person has an easy way to avoid by doing less than a shear, he also has a way to avoid by tuos meiser, by avoiding meiser, by either bringing it in with the shaft or doing it through a back door. So over there, bringing it through this one of this in shaft and doing it through the back rear door, people are going to see and they're going to know that he's trying to avoid paying his meiser. He's going to be like he's going to be on the front page of the Times that this guy is a tax evader. He's a meiser evader.
Does that mean he's being cheap?
You're saying people might have, they might look up to him for that. Hacha betzina, but by chala, all he has to do is do it in smaller amounts. No one's going to be aware of it. Lo zila beils. Is that the way it is? Did I get that right? Hacha gabi chala. No, sorry. Hasam, yeah, but might be there kagas for hasyat zila milsa. Shem playing maram. He doesn't want to do that. Therefore, he's going to do it through Avdei Chavim, because that he could do betzina, and then he's going to forget. But by chala, we're doing it less than that. It's a tzina, nobody knows about it. He's not going to come to do it through Avdei Chavim, and therefore there's no need for a takana. Zak the Mishnah. Bala Yisaran. Now we're going to give the procedure of how you bring the mincha ha'emer. So, like we said, they would go into the fields and cut the barley on the night after Pesach, after the first day of Pesach. So he brings, they put the Yisarin, and then the next morning they make it into flour, and then they take the flour and they put it balay Yisarin, they put it into the kli, nasan olav shamnai, ulavainasai, they put on it the shemen and the lavaina, yatzak balal, then he does the extra pouring, like we said, there were 3 pourings of oil. It's not clear. Rashi and Taisus argue about whether it means he does the yitzika, which is the last belila, which is the last pouring of oil, and belila is the second one. Going to Taisus, going to Rashi, yatzak balal means it's all referring to the second pouring of oil. Heinif, the higgish, he waves it and he does the hagasha, where he brings it and he touches it to the mizbeach. Kametz, then he takes off the kmitza from the mincha with his hand, and he burns it on the mizbeach. The rest of the mincha aimer is eaten by the kahanim. Mishakarav aimer, after they brought the carbon of the aimer, yoitzin umaitzian shuk Yerushalayim shu male kemach kali ukali. They go out, and immediately after the hakravas of the mincha aimer, they're ready. It's like matzah Pesach when you go out to the pizza store. Like the pizza store somehow is magically ready with the pizza. Magically, as soon as the Omer was brought, all the markets, all the stores already had flour and roasted flour from roasted grains. Even though you're not allowed, as we're going to see, one is not allowed to cut the wheat, cut the barley prior to the Omer. Meir says this was not what the Chachamim wanted. They were really supposed to wait to work with the barley, with the tfuah after the Yomer. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Bratzon Chachamayis, and they say it was okay. So what's the reason for the machlekes? Rashi says Shaloi Bratzon Chacham the Gazrin and Shema Yochel Kishayakzer, because you're allowed to cut the wheat, but you're not allowed to eat it. So we're worried maybe maybe as he's cutting it, he's going to eat it. And whatever is already flour will certainly have to. There's no way that you can go find in the stores that they went out to the field and cut it after the Omer was brought. So they must have done it back before that, and they're concerned that maybe they're going to eat from it. Yehuda Omer, the way Gazer Shema Yaakov. Yehuda was not geyser, maybe they'll eat from it.
Yeah, so the wheat, the cotton they made into flour. Next day, then they roasted, then they mixed oil into it.
Yeah, it's like every mincha.
Then they did a hinaf hagasha.
Right.
What they eat the kahana, the leftover.
They just and then they were mocked. They took the kmitza. They were mocked the kaimet. That's one handful
of flour.
They would bake it. They would make it into bread. They could do whatever we said before. They could put honey on it. They could make it however they want. They didn't eat it raw.
Okay.
Yeah. Try to remember. We had something about this, about how they bake. They could bake on Yom Tov. It wasn't even Yom Tov, actually.
For us, the second day Yom Tov, for them was the Chalmud, right?
But there's minchas that are brought on Shabbos also. I don't know what they did. I don't know.
Nishar and Nechalim? I remember that. That's when they were to add stuff.
Right. Right, as I said, they could add honey. Right. The Gemara talks about putting honey in it. They were allowed to bake it.
That makes flour edible?
No, they would bake it with. Say they would put in water and then make it into bread. What they did on Shabbos, I don't remember. Zak the Gemara, because you're right, you have to eat it. You have to eat it that day. No, Shiraim you could eat the next day. No, you don't have to eat it that day. So you could eat it the next day. Second Gemara, Gazer of Yehuda. Fact the Gemara. We said there were machlokes at the end of this, right? That the storekeepers would show up, and then immediately after the Ksiras Omer, after the Haktaras, the Hakrava of the Minchas Omer, they would already have their flour from the new crop in their stores. Rabbi Yehuda says it's not a problem. The Chacham had no takon on this. Practically marvel like Gaza, Rabbi Yehuda. I'm trying to get to this because this is in Yana the Yom Shleishim Yom Kaidem Achag. Is it true that Rabbi Yehuda is not geyser? He's not worried that if you handle something, you can come to eat it. Rabbi Yehuda, Boitkin ar arba aser, uba arba aser shachas, ubashas abir. You do bedikas chametz the night of the 14th, right, and the night before Pesach. And if you forgot to do it then, you could do it in the morning. And if you didn't do it then, you could do it even at the time of beer. But at that point, once you reach the Shas beer, you shouldn't go looking for it anymore, because what's going to happen? After the Shas beer, after midday of the 14th, as we know, chametz is also to eat already. So you're going to go looking for it, you'll find it, and maybe you'll eat it. So better not to look for it, not to look for problems. Loy badak. They say loy badak b'taychamoyed. If you didn't check beforehand, you can even check on Pesach. We're not concerned that maybe they'll find it and eat it. So you see, Rabbi Yehuda is saying we are concerned that someone's going to eat if they find something, and the Rabbanan are saying not, which is the exact opposite of what we said in our Mishnah. In our Mishnah, we said that Rabbi Yehuda said it was the Chachamim allowed people to be kaitzer the tefua before the Omer. We're not worried that they're going to come to eat it. And Reb Meir, who is the same, as we're going to see, the same as the Chachamim, he said you are not allowed. It was in Shaloi B'Tzon Chachamim, but over here the Chachamim say you can be baidik for the chametz on Pesach, and we're not worried you're going to eat. There's obvious differences that will come up. Amar Rabba Shani Chadash. Chadash is different. Mitoich Shalei Etatolei El Al Yedei Kituf. Since you're not allowed, even though they allow you to cut the Chadash before the time of the Omer, they only allow you to do it with a shinui. You have to do it by pulling it out of the ground, not with a scythe, with an implement. To Zacharu, they'll remember, and that's why it was Bertzain Chachamim, according to Rabbi Yehuda. But the Chametz, Einach Hanami, he was worried about. Amalei Abaya, Teinach Ktsira, that helps Lagabi the cutting. Tchina of Arkada, the grinding into flour of Arkada, and the sifting. Ma'ikal Meimer, at that point there's no shinui to remind him not to eat from it. So Gemara Holy Kasha. Tchina Berichaya Diyada. Einach Hanami, there was a shinui in that as well. That he has to do the tchina using a hand grinder. Arkada al gabe nafach beisash al gabe napa, and the sifting you do with a turned over sifter. You do it on the other side. So you have to do shinuyim again to remind you not to eat, as long as it's before the zman of the omer. This we just said that there's a shinu that you have to pull out before the bringing of the omer. You have to do the ksira in a different way. But there are irrigated parts of Eretz Yisrael that don't need water, and those produce a lesser quality of wheat or barley that's not roid to be used for the omer. And the Chachamim were not masakin on it that it has to be cut differently. You could cut it the regular way. So why aren't we worried about that he's going to come to eat it? It's not. You can cut in the valleys that are irrigated with water, that don't need rainfall. But you're not allowed to pile it up. You can cut it. You can cut it in the regular way. Why aren't we concerned that he's going to come to eat it, since there's no shino in that? Abaya says a different thing. Chadash, since the last fall, you haven't been able to eat chadash. You had to wait. I don't know exactly what point it is that you become asur in chadash. Maybe from the beginning of Chodesh Nisan. But at some point you became asur in chadash, and you've been keeping away from chadash until now. Chametz leibadamine, but chametz is something that a person eats every day. It's only on Pesach that it's asur. So since he's accustomed to eating chametz, you'll tell him he's allowed to go look for the chametz. We buy the chametz on Pesach. If he finds it, he'll eat it. But chadash, he knows that he's not allowed to eat chadash, and therefore he's not going to eat it, even if there's no shinoi. He's gonna be careful when he's kaitz. Amar Rava Rabbi Yehuda kasha, the Rabbanan like kasha. So he answered the stira that Rabbi Yehuda would said in our Mishnah. They say he's not geyser on achila by the cutting of the tefua, and he is geyser by b'dikas chametz. What about the Rabbanan? Rav Meir. Rav Meir said that we are worried that he's going to come to eat by the tvua, and the Chacham said you can be baidik on Yom Tov. Al Amar Rava de Rav Yehuda, right? Yeah. So Zok Gemara. The Yehuda, the Rabbanan, the Rabbanan Kasha. El Amar Rava, the Rabbi Yehuda, the Rabbi Kasha. Because we answered Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yehuda. The Rabbanan, the Rabbanan Kasha. Who atzmei machsa love l'sarfa mechalachol minei. He says, they're not worried about bedikas chametz that you're going to come to eat it. The whole purpose that you're going, the Chum said, you go be baidik for chametz. You're going with your feather and your candle. You're not going to eat it. You know exactly why you're looking for it. You're not going to forget. You can't say is svara that a person eats chametz all year round. Now, when he's going to look for it, he's going to go eat it. Rav Ashi Yamar, Rabbi Yehuda like Kasha. He says a whole different text. It's not a shver by Rabbi Yehuda. Kamach kali tnan, kamach ukli tnan. We're talking about. It said that the flour and the kli, which is the flour made from roasted wheat, which is not edible. So a person's not going to eat that as he's going. So the Gemara of Rav Ashi bedusi, but this is brusi. This is incorrect. That makes sense. Lagabi, the roasted grains. Ad kali ma'ikal. What's the eitzah for before it became into flour? He could pop it into his mouth, right? Kali is roasted grains. He could just eat them as they are. I don't know what that means. Like we don't eat them, but I guess it was made into some kind of food. We've come across this before that they ate roasted grains. Lagabi ma'isa. And if you'll say, we're not worried that he's going to eat it earlier because there's a shinui in how he cuts it. But we have the kasha based on shacham. You have to say that Rav Ashi's answer is incorrect because it doesn't hold water in the end. Okay, we'll stop over here.
Chacham says late by that. I'm a little confused. Who says you do check?
Hold on a second.